Black women are divine. Because this chapter, she really goes into it. She talks about the origins of humanity, which obviously is derived from black womanhood. She talks about the gifts of the brilliant aunties, the ancestors that came before us. She says this as fact: black women are divine. She also explores the negatives of it. The fact that actually we are sometimes seen or expected to be superhuman, and that expectation of being superhuman has invited oppressors to visit violence on our bodies, to use us, to experiment on us. I'm going to probably offer this up in another way. I'm saying it to you all in the room, firstly, as affirmation for the black women in the room. Because as a result today, and even outside of today, and even because of the wisdom we've heard today, I need you to really be stepping into your power and showing up with some of the energy and just brilliance that you have within, but also that the wisdom that we've heard today has unlocked. Right, so that's the first thing. It's an affirmation. Again, black women are divine.
Black women are divine.
Thank you. For people who aren't black women, perhaps you are women of colour, I'm going to put it into the room as an invitation to embrace and celebrate this wonderful fact with us, with pure joy. And with no shame, no competition, no fear, because I say again to you, what am I going to say? Let's say it a bit louder. Thank you. And I look around, I totally feel it. And actually, I feel that at every Precious event. Every time when I first went to the Precious Awards, and I actually won Precious Creative Business of the Year, I met amazing women. I remember hearing Aris speak, and I was just like, God, black women are divine. Mm-hmm. And then when I go to Precious Nights and we're looking at the panel, and I think, oh, black women are divine. When I think about the work that Feluke does to show up for us every single bloody day. And so, let me first, I'm gonna do this a bit differently, if that's all right. I had a talk that I timed it was 10 minutes long, so I think I've got a bit of time. I want to first, before I go into that, I'm gonna introduce myself, and then I'm gonna talk a bit about just some reflections on today, because I feel the need to feedback, and just to maybe share some learnings from today, based on my own experience of being a founder. But first of all, yeah, I'm Collette. I'm at Brown by Collette on social, so if you want to follow me, on everything I'm at Brown by Collette, even LinkedIn, / at Brown by Collette. It's always yours to find me, it's Brown by Collette. And I am an entrepreneur. I'm talking about entrepreneurial mindset. But actually, what I just said there, I'm Collette, I'm an entrepreneur. It might be the first time I've ever introduced myself in that way, despite the fact that I've been running a business for 6 years, despite the fact that I've won awards for my business, Precious being one of them, despite the fact that my business is all about advising other organisations, other businesses, on how they do business, particularly how they do business and build brands in a way that drives social justice and positive change. Despite having spoken many times about being a founder, about business, about strategy, still I really struggled with this label, entrepreneur. And I think one of the big things, it wasn't just an imposter syndrome thing, and actually if you've heard me speak about that, I've got a whole thing on that, but that's another talk. It is because the stereotypes of being an entrepreneur just never appealed. The hustle culture, or the grind, right? The expectation of the grind as well, and consistent and constant grind, and the glorification of the grind. The idea of these maverick risk takers and this concept of who's allowed to take these risks and who isn't. And also the fact that these risk takers often gloss over some of the stuff that we've heard about today. So some of the stuff that Selena talked about in terms of the structural disadvantages that black women face around finance. So some of these maverick risk takers just don't have it, because let's be honest, those are not black women that we're hearing about as entrepreneurs. So these maverick, wild-card risk takers, don't see myself in that. The need to schmooze and be one of the boys in order to be accepted as an entrepreneur never appealed. Even the fluffy, twirly world of the girl boss. Nah, not for me, sorry. Despite the fact, don't get me wrong, you've heard it. The company of women. I love the company of black women. I love the company of women of colour, and I show up. But still, not this girl boss stuff. It wasn't for me. And what I've realised, I work in and around brands. I've done so for now the introduction since 16 years, right? And I realised that is just out of date. It's actually been 20, not even nearly 20. It's actually been 20 years that I've worked in and around, 22 years that I've worked in and around brands. So that's well old now, the intro, I need to rewrite it. So I've realised that these stereotypes, as with most stereotypes, are designed to maybe distract, to mask the brilliant truth of the entrepreneurial mindset, and deliberately to box people out of this idea of entrepreneurship. So these stereotypes are designed to make it seem as if certain people can be entrepreneurs and certain people can have this. And this status of entrepreneur is just for the favoured few. But I will say to you, and I'm going to pause in a sec and talk about some of my reflections today, but my opening is that as black women and women of colour, I think an entrepreneurial mindset, if I can say it, is a gift and a tool in our arsenal that allows us to thrive, not just survive, in a world that's built to work around us. To be clear, I don't think you can mindset your way out of structural inequity. I don't think you can mindset your way out of structural racism, and please don't think that that's what I'm going to say. However, in the midst of this society and this system that's built to work against us, actually, a world that's built to profit from our brilliance and efforts, but often in a way that keeps us down, I feel like this idea and some of the tools of entrepreneurial mindset and some of the wisdom that we've heard throughout the day is just some stuff that really helps us. I want to talk to you about entrepreneurial mindset, and I've got three principles of entrepreneurial mindset, three attributes that I've really learned and benefited from as I've built my business. So the first one, recently I read a book called White Tears, Brown Scars by Ruby Hamad. I would recommend it actually, White Tears, Brown Scars. It's about white feminism. And in it she says, brown and black women are deeply impacted, often without realising it, by the grind of living in a society that does not recognise, let alone reward, our value, right? So the first point for me on entrepreneurial mindset is that we need to build, we need to know, and we need to own our value. One of the things I do quite a lot of speaking around personal brand, and there's a couple of questions that I ask, 3 questions I ask that I think might be useful around this concept of understanding our value. The first one is, what are you great at? Not just good, no, I'm alright at. And this is not the time for false modesty. What are you great at? You need to understand it. Then, why does the world need that? At this point, sometimes when I work with a client, and it really sort of slightly breaks my heart, what are you great at? People, I'm not sure, I guess I'm good at this. Then, why does the world need it? I don't know. And then, but why does the world need it? Because this is key, and that's kind of the intersection of purpose. And then, why the world needs it? Who needs it the most? Because this is the core to your value. Who needs it the very, very most? Remember that society often doesn't recognise or reward our value, at least not initially. So you do need to show people kind of who you are and what you're worth. So again, those 3 questions: what are you great at? Why does the world need it? And who needs it the most? Will help you understand your value. It's not about proving your worth, because this isn't a defensive action, although it can feel like it. When people challenge you, you can feel this need to, well, I'm going to prove. You don't need to bring that defensive energy into it. It's about showing it. You can show it through your action, you can show it through your wisdom. All of the brilliant speakers we've heard today have shown their value and their values alongside it through just their action, just through showing up and talking about what you do. It shows it's showing your value. It's not having to defend it in front of people. So, and the other thing around this is, as much as you need to show your value, you also need to value it. So, it doesn't mean you can't be generous and with your time and your abilities, but you do need to be intentional about it. So, Denise mentioned this, and I think it's a really good, auditing your activities to work out what's bringing you most value. And value being, yes, financial, but also the stuff that's bringing you joy and the stuff you love. That is kind of the value equation, really understanding that, as opposed to the stuff that you're doing a lot of, but it's taking a lot of time and you don't love it. That's a really good thing to do, to just understand kind of your value and be intentional about what your value is. There's often a debate around doing free stuff, right? Should we do it? People, free stuff. Now, I've got a really big position on that, which is that, free stuff for exposure, no. All right? Free stuff for people that don't want to pay, no. Free stuff for people that are, the first thing they do is come to you with, oh, well, we're small, or we're starting, or we're a charity. Nah, sorry. Don't get me wrong. You can absolutely do free stuff, but make it sure that it's for the individuals, the charities, the organisations that are so close to your heart and so need it, that you understand this is your gift to them. You can give freely and generously, but be absolutely intentional with it. Don't tell people, we've heard a lot of this today, so people will often tell you that it's not polite to ask for payment or money, and they may even make you feel impolite. I've noticed that this notion of politeness and kindness, again, is something that is appended to some people and not others. So don't let people let people think that don't let people make you feel rude for asking about money. Because actually it should be a natural question, and that is their own embarrassment at being so bad-minded to ask you something. Is just you calling them. If you're calling them in, they might feel some way about it. So we've talked about this. Your worth is much more than financial. It's about your energy, your expertise, your wisdom, your intellectual capital, which is words that Denise used that I love, your knowledge. So make sure you understand its value to you and to the world around you. Because regardless of that, I think when I charge my consultancy fees, I've got very good at charging them at a certain level. And it certainly isn't about the time I spend in a room with people. It could be an hour and a half. But in that hour and a half, I'm bringing my 20 years of experience in and around brands. I'm bringing my understanding and in-depth knowledge of social justice. I'm bringing all my lived experience. I'm bringing my unique professional background, from agency to client to charity, to big charity to small charity, to big brands to small brands. That's given me this big brand energy and expertise, but with this grassroots campaigning fire. That's what they're paying for. And if they don't want to pay, do you know what? No hard feelings. They just don't get to work with me. Believe me, you can sign up to my mailing list, that's free. You can read my blog, that is also free, but you don't get me. And I feel like understanding your value is absolutely key around this. So that's my first point. The other thing around value is I need to bring in values at this point, because your values are your non-negotiable principles, and they help you drive how you show up in your how you show up in the world. The reasons why values are useful to connect to your value is because they help you understand the stuff you should absolutely drive towards and the stuff you should work and you should run away from. And they help you safeguard your worth, because I'll say to you, no amount of money in the world is worth compromising on your values. I may be speaking from a very privileged position when I say this, but genuinely, I've seen it too often. If you are going to do stuff that is compromising your values, it eats away at your soul. And you know when I say that knowing your worth and being able to show up and that energy and the divineness I talked about earlier, when you are going against your values and doing work, it's so difficult to show up as your brilliant best self that actually you can't then do the work that is valuing, that is going to show and demonstrate your worth to the world. So that's what I would say. Your values are personal to you, and they may differ from other people, so it's not to let other people determine what your values are. But genuinely, they're probably not unique. In fact, they're not. I know they're not unique. There are some universal values that people share. And the most brilliant and rewarding thing about values is that when you find people, rooms of people that share your values, when you find people that you can collaborate with and work with to share your values, it's just the most joyful thing in the world. Even to spend time with them, it is. So I would say own your value, but also your values and keep them close. So that's my first point. Own your values and your value. The second one. So, and I always start, sorry I should have said this, I'm starting each one with a quote because I love a good quote. So the second one I've got is from RuPaul. RuPaul said, "It's your life's work to shine. You were not made to fit in, you were made to stand out." So, and we've heard some of this as well today. Across, in fact, all of the workshops, so in a couple of them. So entrepreneurial mindset means being brilliant at what you do, and also knowing what you're brilliant at, knowing what you're great at. When we were in Camille's workshop around multiple income streams, she talked about it a lot, like how you can derive both active and passive income from just stuff you're great at. No matter what that stuff is, but you need to understand what you're great at, what you're brilliant at. And at this point, people say, well, I know people that aren't brilliant and they still do really well. To be honest, the thing that they are brilliant at might be convincing people they're brilliant, right? There are some people, many people that are just brilliant at that. And I love that, if those people, that's what they're brilliant at. There's no shame if you can't see that person's brilliance, but other people can. Clearly they are brilliant at something. They are clearly brilliant at something. So there is something about cultivating the areas where you're brilliant at and letting them shine. Don't let the weight of other people's expectations or insecurity or fear of being stereotyped as something you're not stop you from shining and shining bright. And I say this because this is one of the things, when I do personal brand work, I hear it quite often around maybe things where people are brilliant around speaking out, speaking up, being outspoken, but as black women, they're like, I don't want to be stereotyped as the angry black woman. I've heard so many people say to me that I don't want to be stereotyped as the angry black woman as a reason for them not shining bright and not stepping into their power. And you cannot let these stereotypes box you in. You can't let fear of them. Actually, you need to understand what you're brilliant at. You might also need to cultivate. You may be great at some things and they come very naturally, but you still need to work at them. When I say work, I don't mean in terms of grind. Just keep up to date with your industry. Just make sure you're reading things. Just make sure you're nurturing that personal development. And this is oftentimes, and I will say this, whether when you run your own businesses, when you work in organisations, it's something we can often compromise and not make time for. Particularly as we get more senior in our careers, we might think we know it all, but actually cultivating that brilliance is absolutely key. Because RuPaul said this, it's your life's work. So if I'm saying it's your life's work to shine, you do need to make sure that you're doing it throughout your life. It's this kind of that. So entrepreneurial mindset, part of this is about knowing what makes you brilliant, what makes you shine, and really honing this and spending time on it consistently. It also means understanding and minimizing the stuff that dulls your light, which is where the self-care comes in, which is where boundaries come in, but that's a whole other talk. I can't go into that today. Just know that someone once said to me, and I'll leave you with it, it's like, I will leave you with this for this point, so I ain't finished. Someone once said to me, give from your overflow, not from your reserves, and I really love that. And often we're giving, not only just, it doesn't even mean giving from your, the bit that's nearly full, it's giving from your overflow. And ultimately, quite often we're trying to give when we're severely depleted, and giving from your overflow means one, topping yourself up, and then that's where you give from. It's also what you need to shine brightly. If you're going to shine brightly, you need to make sure you're topping yourself up and you're doing what that means, and you understand what that is. And the stuff that limits and dulls your light, it could be people, it could be circumstances, it could be tasks. Any one of those, but it's really important to understand what that is. Another quote, it says, "Of course they don't like me, I'm the king. Tell me why, oh why, would I reply to him?" That's Stormzy in his latest song, Mel Made Me Do It. And that is exactly the energy you need to bring with your entrepreneurial mindset. I said this thing about at the beginning. The reason why I said to you all, black women are divine, is because actually we need to step into that space. You notice my necklace says Queen, not because of not that, right? Not that. It is because I need to own that energy. I need to step into it, and that means stepping into my own power, understanding my sphere of influence where I am the queen. It means doing stuff like not waiting for permission. Instead, just thinking, how can I do this? How could I do this? Not saying, oh, well, they won't let me, they won't like it, it won't work. But recognizing that actually there's something about people only start moaning when you're doing something great, because you're doing something great. They only start moaning when you're starting to win, because often it reminds them that they aren't doing it. And so rather than uplift you, they will seek to tear you down. So actually, I call this one being your own boss, right? Be a king, be a queen, whatever it is, bring that energy. But be a nice boss. Don't be a dictator, even to yourself, right? Don't burn yourself out, work all the hours, expect the impossible of yourselves, and then beat yourself up when things go wrong. Collette saying this to me as much as anyone else, but that's not the way to show up. When I say be your own boss, I mean be that lovely, progressive, amazing, kind, growth mindset boss that inspires people, that may have inspired you to go on to great things and really is leading by example. So they're my three things around entrepreneurial mindset. First one, own your value and values. The second one is to shine brightly, and the third one is to be your own boss your own life. So I want to leave you with a final quote, which is from Mindy Kaling, who's this amazing comedy writer who I absolutely love. I think she's hilarious, and she's written a few books that I love. So her quote is this. She says, and apologies for anyone that hates swearing, there's a bit of swearing in this. I've already sworn on, by the way, I'm free swearing. So she says, work hard, know your shit, show your shit, and then feel entitled. Listen to no one except the two smartest and kindest adults you know, and that doesn't always mean your parents. If you do that, you will be fine. And my loves, I'm going to say it to you, if you do that, you're going to be more than fine, because I know that you all are here because you want to fly, and I know that you're going to, and that we all collectively love to see it. So thank you again to Feluke at the back. Thank you, Precious, for having me, and thank you all so much for listening.